Hey guys, welcome to video number 4, also known as Talents Part 2. So obviously we are going to add on to our talents. We're also going to make a few changes to our crafting, and we're going to add a mining attribute. But first off, let's go ahead and start with adding an ore, because as of right now when you mine our ore game object, you get a fishing rod item. We don't want that. We want to get some ore. So let's make an empty game object and rename it to some sort of ore. I'll just use iron ore. And add an item component to that. Just drag this right on item on floor because I think you need that. But other than that, we don't have to mess with anything. But as we know, you need to make your game object, it needs to be a prefab in order for it to be an item. So we're just going to drag it from our hierarchy to our assets. I made a folder called items, so it's very easy to access, and we are good there. Now let's add that attribute, mining. The reason we're adding this is because we're going to want to make different types of ores and set restrictions. So basically we're going to make fake levels using an attribute. Which is going to be cool because we can check to see if the value of that attribute is a certain amount, and then we can mine ourselves a different type of ore. So what we're going to go ahead and do is add that attribute. So go to attributes, hit the plus button, and rename it to mining. Go to your classes and just add it to the class that your player is on. So mining, and we want the base value to be 0 because we don't want him to start off with a mining experience when he doesn't know anything about mining. So let's go ahead and mess with our ore now. So open up that ply box. I'm going to do quite a bit of things here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to make the changes, talk about it a little bit, and then when I'm done, I'm going to go over every single event that we have thoroughly so that you guys will understand it, so that you can learn a bit more. So let's just go ahead and start making the changes. First off, we don't want to get a fishing rod anymore. We want to get that iron ore that we made. It's good there. So let's start off with on start. We're going to want another variable, and we're going to want to name it available. I shortened it up to avail for short. It's going to be a boolean, so we're going to set that to true. And that is all we have to do on start. Let's go back down to our on mouse down event and add a few things. So what we are going to add to our ore is the resource variable that I keep forgetting to go over. We actually have to go over that in this video, so that way I cannot forget. So what that means basically is the amount of iron ore it has inside of the object. So like because you don't want your player to be able to mine the ore and the ore is just going to be there forever, because that's just not how life works. So we're going to set a limit on that, but eventually we are going to respawn the ore so that it has more resources left and that the player can mine it once again. So we need to check to see when to not let the player mine it. So we're going to go to flow, if, and you're going to want to put this inside of your first if. Certainly not your second if. And we're going to want to check to see if it is less than or equal to a certain number. So go to common, integer, and we're just going to type in 20. I'm going to copy and paste this one, but I am going to rename it to... Oh, actually, no, I'm not going to rename it because that's what we're checking is resource. And when that happens, we are going to trigger an event, which we have not made yet, but we will make that shortly. So let's just go ahead and trigger an event. Let's rename it something like destroy, and let's do that after 2 seconds or so. So 2 seconds. And now we need to check if it's available. So we're actually going to do that before we check if resource is not there. So let's go to if, and a equals b, because we're going to check to see if a variable is true. So just go to common, boolean, true. We can copy this and paste it in that first field. and rename it to that variable that we made on start. So now we can cut this, paste that in there, and we're good. So what we do here is we check to see if it's available, and then we continue from there. If it's not available, none of this is going to happen. So I believe we are good there. Let's add that custom event destroy. So just add an event and rename it to destroy. All we're going to want to do here is set this variable to false so that our player can no longer mine it, and then we're going to want to trigger another event by going to flow, trigger event. We have not made this event. Let's just let's name it to respawn, and let's set it after a certain amount of seconds. Now typically you're going to want to make this a rather high number because you don't want your player to be able to just mine, just wait like 1 or 2 seconds and then it's going to be back. But I'll set it rather low to 10 for testing purposes. So now let's go ahead and add that respawn event. So go to custom and rename it to respawn. And all we're going to do here is the exact same thing that we are doing on start. Let's throw some debugs in there so we can know when these events were triggered during runtime. So let's type in respawn, and let's type in destroyed. Now we're going to know when it's destroyed and when it's respawned. One last thing we need to do on the on mouse down event is add to that attribute value that we made called mining. So let's go to character, set attribute, or actually change attribute. We're going to change the value of mining on the player, and let's just go with 10. An attribute has two values. It has just the general value, and it has a consumable value. Now we are faking leveling with this, so we only ever need this to be one value. So what we're going to have to do is going to set an attribute. We're going to set the consumable value on the player of mining to the value of that same exact attribute. So now that we're good here, as promised, I'm going to go over it all. So when the ore spawns, we set the amount of ore that it has in it to 110, and we set available to true. So if the player is close enough, and if it is available, and if the player knows the skill, we do all these things that we already know. We increase his experience in mining. We subtract 10 from that initial resource, and we're going to check to see if resource is less than or equal to 20. The reason I didn't put this on an on update event is because I didn't want too many things on an on update event, trying to keep it as small as possible in case that's going to slow down the game a bit. So if the resource is less than this number, we're going to trigger an event called destroy, and all destroy does is set available to false, and then it triggers an event called respawn, and what that does is set available to true and set the resource back up to 110. Ooh, so let's go ahead and hit play and see if that works. So I equipped my pickaxe, showing my variables on my ore game object. Click it. It is in fact decreasing by 10 like we set it to. Now let's see if our experience in mining is going up, and yes it is, because it's at 20, and every time we click it, it goes up by 10. So let's go ahead and see if the destroy and respawn is working. Click, 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 click. We're going to fix that. Right now you can just keep clicking it. We don't want that, but we can see that is destroyed. After 10 seconds it should be respawning. So there it goes, and the resource is back up to 110, and our character can now mine it again. And we are in fact getting our iron ore, so that's very cool. Next, what we are going to want to do, let's go ahead and mess with our crafting. As somebody pointed out on the forum site, As of right now, you can just click your anvil and it will give you your item that we set right here. It will give you your pickaxe anyways, and that is because stupid me didn't put these inside of this first if event. So what you're going to want to do is just cut and paste those and make sure they go into that if event right there. And now it should not do that any longer. But to make this a little bit more universal, let's go ahead and cut this out, copy this down and paste it inside of that and rename it to parameter 2. Let me explain why I did that. Because as it was before, no matter what triggered this event, it was going to give you a pickaxe, and we didn't want that because we don't want to have to make a crafting event for each and every individual item that the player can craft. For example, as it was before, I would have to rename this to crafting a pickaxe or something like that, because no matter what, it gave you a pickaxe. So how it is now, it's going to give you whatever parameter 2 is. It's going to be a whole bunch more universal like this. So now let us go ahead and set up parameter 2. By going over to our anvil, opening this up, we no longer get fishing rods from our ore, we get iron ore. So let's go ahead and set that up. And parameter 2 is what we're going to craft. So let's go to items, add an item, and I made an item so that I don't have to reuse an item. I just named it shield, so I'm just going to hit shield. You can make your own item, be whatever you want to craft, and just put that in parameter 2. So let's go back over to our logic so I can explain that once more. So it checks to see if we have this many of iron ore, and then it takes that many of iron ore out of our bag, and then it gives us our reward, which in my case is a shield. So let's hit play and see if that works. First, what we're going to have to do is go ahead and get ourselves some iron ore. Click it once, click it twice, click it another time, because why not? Go to our item bag. We have indeed 3 iron ores. Click it. It's going to take 2 iron ores out and give us a shield. And if I click it, it's no longer going to give me a shield even if I don't have the iron ore because of that fix we did. Thank you to the user that pointed that out on the forum site. So now crafting is a lot more universal, and we have our attribute set as experience we're going to use for fake leveling, and I'm going to show you that now. So let's go ahead and just duplicate this ore right here, move it over so we know it's a different one. Let's rename our objects. This one was iron ore, it was our first one, so I'll rename it to iron ore, and I'll go ahead and rename this one to gold ore. Now we're going to want to make another item called gold ore. We found that was very simple, so rename our empty game object that we just created to gold ore. Make it an item. Set the floor art and turn that into a prefab. So now we need to make some changes here on our gold ore. So open the plybox component. First off, it's not going to give us iron ore, it's going to give us gold ore. Second, what we're going to want to do is go to flow, if, and we're going to put that here. Actually, let's go ahead and move that down one after available. So what we want to do here is check to see if our value of our attribute mining is greater than or equal to a certain number, which is going to set a restriction. If it's below that number, we are not going to be able to mine the ore because we are not experienced enough yet. I hope that makes sense, because that is what we are going to do. So let's check to see if it's greater than or equal to a certain number. Character get attribute mining. We're going to get the value from a player. And just for this testing purposes, we're going to set that to a lower number. You would probably want to set that to a higher number in your game. Actually, I have no idea how you're going to set your game up, so you're just going to set it to any number that you would like. In my case, I'll just set it to 50. And now we need to cut these and paste it inside of there. We do not need to cut this, actually. That can stay exactly where it is. So yeah, now we are good. So what it does is check if the player is close enough, if the ore is available, if the player has enough experience in mining, and if he knows the skill. So let's go ahead and do that. I equipped my pickaxe. Let's go to my player, show debug info. He has no experience in mining, so he should not be able to mine this gold ore right here. But what we can do is mine some iron ore, like so, until we get the 50 experience in mining. You can see in our item bag that gave us iron ore. Now that we have 50 experience in mining, we should be able to mine this next higher classed ore, and we do work, and it gives us the better ore here. So that is the end of this video. What we learned was how to fake leveling using an attribute, and how to make crafting more universal. I hope this helped you guys, and I hope these series continue to help you in videos that I do in the future. So thank you guys for watching.